Aloha guys, welcome to another quick edition of Atort tutorials. I'm going to show you again how to remove someone in a photo or an object. In this case we're working with a wave image with a lot of people who are shooting in Hawaii. They have people in their way or in the wave and they'd rather not have them as the focus. So I feel like we can't get enough of this, so I'm going to show you a couple options on how to do this. I'm in Photoshop Creative Cloud 2018, which is a subscription-based software. You can buy it or subscribe for $9.99 a month. You'll get Lightroom as well. So right now I'm in Photoshop. I'm working on a Mac. I'm going to hit Command-J always, Control-J on a PC. Whoop, make sure I'm in Photoshop to get a duplicate layer. So I want to always isolate my moves, especially something like cleaning up or cloning out an object on a separate layer in case I want to go ahead and make a layer mask or do something to revert to my original file. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There's a guy from Hawaii, or not, but whatever, some guy from the Big Island apparently, who was shooting with the GoPro. I felt like couldn't get enough space, but regardless, it is what it is. So as you see, there's a bunch of little things. There's his head, his obvious hand with the GoPro, and then you got his reflections right here in a few different areas. So what I'm going to use for this is the clone tool. So I'm going to go ahead and get over to that. That's actually the S key for keyboard shortcut. So clone stamp tool. And one little quick thing, a lot of people, if you go in here, you can see in the clone source, this show overlay, I always make sure I uncheck it because it's really distracting to me to see it. So that's a little thing. If you hit it, you kind of get this little, see how it kind of like shows you where the source is going to be, but I hate it. I'm not a fan. So I take that and uncheck it. So what I'll do, I'm using a Wacom Pro tablet. So I have my stylus and I have my one modifier key on my pen set to the option key. So the option when you're working with the clone stamp tool is your source. So if I go ahead and I can go ahead and I'm going to be changing my brush opacity. So all of these things you have to take into consideration. Your brush opacity, the pressure you use with your Wacom tablet, all of these things will come into kind of getting, you know, the best results out of getting something taken out with an object removal or doing anything actually. So I'm going to make sure I address some of these things. So right now I'm going to clone over here. And if you see, you just kind of lightly get rid of it by sourcing and then brushing a little bit. Now, what if you see right now, I'm set to an opacity of 100, a flow of 100, and I'm just going to go ahead. I may not even do that. I'm going to go to like 50 opacity, make a little softer edge brush, and maybe just do something like that for the interim. And then here I'm going to go ahead and use my spot healing brush tool, which essentially just, see that? So if I just paint really lightly over it, it takes out that little set of reflections. So this is good for some of the smaller areas. It probably won't work as well. And again, the amount of pressure you use will affect the results. And you always want to have the Command-Z, the undo key. Basically, I'm holding my keyboard with the Command-Z, and I'm using my Wacom in my right hand to go ahead and make a move. If I like it, I keep it, and if I don't, I hit Command-Z and I undo it. So you could always kind of see, it's a little toggle before, after. Does before look better or does after look better? So you kind of just keep on going in that direction. So if you see, I'm going to go ahead, and you can refine again with all of this. So I'm going to refine with the clone stamp tool a little bit. Now I'm going to try to get to this guy, the main part, and I'm going to go and toggle between both of the tools, between the spot healing brush tool and the clone stamp tool. So I'm going to first see if I can get away with using the spot healing brush tool by just swiping down. And as you see, it works good for certain things. I don't know, maybe it'll work all right with his head. But again, when someone's in the water, it really does, you know, affect every reflection. It's not just, you know, his head and that's it. So Sometimes it does kind of suck when someone is there. For this, I'm going to go ahead and use my clone stamp tool. And I'm just going to kind of take a little bit of the Aloha range right over here, clone out his head. I can even kind of just get a little, let me see. So you see what I'm doing? I'm using my Option key on my modifier button on my stylus, and I'm just kind of cloning in the area. So you see how nice that is? I mean, that works pretty well. So now I got this. This is basically the last of him swimming and the whole kind of trail of mess that people make when they're in the water. I mean, it's part of the deal. Can't get mad, but at the same time, yeah, it does suck sometimes. But if you know how to combat it, you can relax a little bit more and enjoy and know that it's not the end of the world. You actually do have a solution if you know what you're doing. And it's actually fun. You know, it's rewarding to go ahead and, you know, like do something successfully. I have a couple images that, you know, I sell and are really successful and had some retouching and people would never know and didn't ever know. So let me see. I'm going to go ahead and use the spot removal tool one more time. Not really the best thing. No. So now I'm going to zoom out a little bit and kind of see what happens. And a lot of times if you lower the opacity, you can kind of blend some of the areas a little bit better. And you don't want it to get too soft. The noise is what gives you focus. So this grain is actually helping with the sharpness of your image. When you start getting this smooth area, it will start looking soft and kind of crappy. So you want to make sure you do. See that? Let me see. Well, and it takes a lot of time sometimes to really get it to work well. So you got to be patient. This is a tutorial, so I'm just kind of giving you an idea of a couple of the tools I used. No. And you don't want any repetition. Yep, like that. You see that? That little white area? You don't want it to be repeating. If it kind of goes seamlessly, let me zoom out and see. Now if you see, that looks pretty good. It looks a lot different when you're zooming in like 300, 400% to do this. But when you zoom out, you can barely even tell. So he's out of there. His reflection's out of there. His ripple that he did. Really everything. So again, within what, 5 minutes, you can go ahead and retouch and get someone out of there. Again, the two tools that I went and focused on were my clone stamp tool, which is S keyboard shortcut. And if you hit J, it's gonna bring you up the whole dialog box with some different tools, but I'm using the spot healing brush tool, J, and you gotta make sure it's set to content aware. Some of these little things, all of them really come into play. You gotta play and experiment and learn a bunch, and it just takes time, but you see, before, after, and all of that within a few minutes. So I hope that helps you guys play around. Photoshop is, to me, the most powerful editing program for a still photographer. People use Lightroom, and I'm not knocking it, but if you learn Photoshop, there's nothing that can touch it. Aloha, guys. Peace.